Don't go at 8 o'clock. Wait till I tell you. You're good.
Pick up all 3 of the Eden series on Amazon.com.
It's me, the D-O-double-G. Welcome to the Eden Army Podcast with your host tonight, Pete Robert Tucci.
Welcome, everybody, to the Eden Army Podcast. I am your host tonight, Pete Robert Tucci. We go live every Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So here we are. Now look, sometimes you work a plan. 2 days, you study the plan, you have an agenda, and then all of a sudden that agenda gets thrown entirely out the door. And you come up with plan B. But guess what? Plan B was a better plan to begin with. So on tonight's show, we're going to go over current events. And since the current events this week was so heavy regarding some of the news in Israel, we decided to bring in an expert. Because look, I'm not an expert on everything. I know I'd like to think that I am, but our good friend tonight, Emery, how you doing, brother?
Howdy. Thank you for having me on, Pete. I don't know about the expert stuff, but other than that, great.
Well, more of an expert. You'll be more of an expert than me, I should say. So, Russ, I'll take care of the switch info. Well, thanks for being here, Emery. We appreciate you. We're it was kind of a last minute add-on. I didn't want to bother you, but of course you said any time, and we got to know each other pretty damn good at the Mountain Readiness event. And I am going to need your expertise tonight on a couple of things, because we're going to go over some stuff that we did at a place called TroysGate. And, I don't normally film myself, and of course I didn't film myself this time, but I want you to talk about some of the stuff. We're going to go over that a little bit later, but more importantly, tonight what I want to talk about is news in Israel. So let's pop that over real quick. Boom. Beautiful.
Blood is boiling already.
It is. So did you hear the International Criminal Court seeks arrest warrants for 3 Hamas leaders, as well as Benjamin Netanyahu. Here's the thing. The International Court is seeking arrest warrants against the 3 leaders of Hamas, which is a Palestinian militant group. Obviously, they're terrorists. And the only reason they're doing that is because they also want to bring up war crimes against the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity. The Hamas crimes are obviously related to the October 7th terrorist attack, but they're saying that Israel is committing war crimes right now inside the Gaza Strip. So as of May 21st, applications for these arrest warrants have been filed with an ICC pretrial chamber, which means they're going to review them, see if the charges have any validity, and see if they can be confirmed or not confirmed. But look, it's noteworthy that it took a considerable amount of time, Emery, for the ICC to seek arrest warrants for the Hamas leaders. Given the severe allegations, including rape of dead women in front of their children, the murder of toddlers, and the abductions of innocent civilians, whether alive or dead, and brought into the Gaza Strip. In contrast, the ICC was swift to pursue war crimes against Israel. Look, this has led to some criticism, not only of the United Nations and the international court system as being a biased and corrupt organization, with some even saying that they're advocating for the United States to withdraw funding for both of these corrupt organizations. Now, look, Emery, you know more about the ICC. You know more about maybe the UN as it pertains to Israel. What are your thoughts on all this?
Oof.
Yeah, go ahead.
How long do we have? Are we here till tomorrow, right?
I'll kick you off whenever.
So look, this stuff makes my blood boil. The UN since 48, and we can take it back that far if you're interested, but the UN ever since essentially the 50s has been pretty vehemently anti-Israel. And that's the entire UN. And these are UN bodies. They're independent. But the first thing that I want everybody to be aware of is who are the people heading these things. Now, there's two courts involved, right? There's the ICC and the ICJ. I'm not well enough versed to give you all the legal differences and all that, but the basic thing is the ICC is the International Criminal Court. They do the crimes against humanity, blah blah blah, war crimes, that kind of stuff. And then the International Court of Justice is the actual UN body that is supposed to arbitrate and research and all that, everything concerning countries included in the UN, which it was fortunate in the beginning that Israel it's like the 50 whatever member of the UN. Both of these courts are vehemently anti-Israel, much in the same way that the UN Human Rights Council is, typically comprised of Arab nations, nations that are against Israel. And that's how you see, 14 decisions in 1 year against Israel and one against another country on the planet.
Exactly.
Right? And those are the numbers, right? So if you look at who's heading this up, and it's probably not going to come up here. I'm not very technologically savvy, but I've pulled up here the head prosecutor, right, of the International Criminal Court. Right, his name is Karim Ahmad Khan. What does that make you think?
Oh, he's a nice Jewish guy.
Yeah, nice liberal guy, right? So he's British. He's a Pakistani Muslim guy, right? That's who you bring in to run this case against Israel. First and foremost, already, I'd be kicking this thing out the door. Nobody takes this court seriously. They never do anything that's proper or correct. And that to me is all the evidence I need to be like, nope. However, I've been, I've watched a bunch of these proceedings. I've watched, the Israeli ambassadors giving their, their accounts and their counter rebuttals and all that stuff, or rebuttals, I should say, counter arguments. And then I watched Kareem's declaration of, all this stuff and, putting out the criminal stuff he did about. And by the way, it's not just Bibi, it's Yoav Gallant as well, who is our Secretary of Defense, right. Minister of Defense, technically in Israel. This whole thing is a farce. It's really, it was from the start aimed at this anti-Israel stuff. And it's just that simple. There's really not that much more that I can explain about it other than, these are bodies that have always somehow in the last 20, 30 years seemed to centralize their existence around attacking Israel. And it is what it is. When you have, the UN, Human Rights Council, which I like to rag on a bunch because, it's like the biggest contradiction between the name and what the body actually does. When it's headed by countries like Iran, UN Human Rights Council headed by Iran.
Right.
When they have countries like that, it's like, how can you take these people seriously? You can't. You just can't.
You can't. And Emery, you're not the only one that actually, I've had other IDF guys on here that share the same sentiment with the United Nations. But what really bothers me is, why doesn't the rest of the world see this? I mean, look, I am pro-Israel. There's no doubt about it, and the reason I am is because I have friends over there, and quite honestly, I have a spiritual belief that I should be for the state of Israel. But regardless, if you agree with that or not, if you're watching, that doesn't bother me. That's just my belief. But fact of the matter is, why isn't the rest of the world seeing this?
Well, that's the $1 trillion question, right? Inflation, so it's trillion now. Really, look, the question you're asking really is, why does the world hate the Jews? I mean, that's it, right?
You're right, 100%, absolutely.
If you look at this war and you look at factually at what's going on and what's been going on, not the rhetoric, on college campuses, not what Joe Biden is spewing out of both sides of his mouth. There is good and evil. There is right and there is wrong. I'm not saying Israel's some, beautiful mythological place that, does everything correctly. Of course not. Humans are humans. And like we were talking about before, humans are we are all flawed.
Mm-hmm.
But really, if you look at everything that's going on, this is a fight of good versus evil. And it's nothing short of that. Some people have been saying, rest assured it's coming here, but nobody really properly explains why or how it's coming here, or what form it might take.
Right.
So many bodies are against Israel because, look, anti-Semitism is a thing. It's always been a thing. The Holocaust wasn't that long ago.
Mm-hmm.
And there are plenty of examples before and since of the attempts at exterminating the Jews. If that's a topic we want to get into, I'll be happy to kind of get into that topic. But I think more importantly, let's really talk about what's currently happening, which is, the whole world and a chunk of our country here. And it's very hard to kind of discern how many people in America really see things in this way or that way. I'm more inclined to believe that, the groups that are just super insane and the whole river to the sea and, all that shit, I'm inclined to think that is a minority, but minorities can be pretty big. Look at Iran, right? It's run by a minority. Look at all these Muslim countries. They're all run by minorities pretty much,
Mm-hmm.
right? Jordan, Syria, Iraq. And so, I'm concerned that here in America, even though it defeats the entire purpose of our country, I'm concerned that there's going to be a very dramatic and unreasonable negative effect taking place here by a minority.
Well,
I'm not talking about an ethnic minority, but
right, and it's true. And what I tell the people who I come in contact with is, so listen, why do you send so much money to Israel? Why are you for that? Why do you do that? I go, what? In my opinion, Israel first right now is the shield for Europe. Okay, they're stopping Muslim extremists from taking over Europe, which is happening fast right now, and they look at Israel as what they call the little Satan. Who do you think they call the big Satan? The United States of America. So as soon as Israel ceases to exist, that bullseye goes squarely on my daughter's back, on my wife's back, on the people that are viewing this right now's back, and they don't care. They will that bullseye will be squarely on their back. So that's my 2 cents worth. Right, wrong, or indifferent. That's the way Pete thinks. But let's go on to some news, because otherwise we're going to
brother,
really
1 second.
go. Go ahead.
It's
Go ahead.
not right, wrong, or indifferent. You are 100% correct. You are just unequivocally correct. And it's not only the good people's back that the bullseye is painted on, it includes all those idiots that are protesting at college campuses, right? They are the big Satan just as much as you and I and everybody else in this country is. And I'd love to get into it further, specifically from like their position, but yeah, I'm sorry. I just wanted to push that in.
No, and you're right. I do appreciate that's why you're here, brother. That is 100% why you're here. Let's move on to the next story, or we were gonna keep these people up all night on a Friday night, and they're freaks. They're gonna want to go out and party, so we definitely don't want to keep them up too late. Did you see in the news that the UN suspends food aid to Gaza on the 22nd? You see that in the news?
That I have not seen.
Oh, well, I'll clue you in here real quick. So, recent reports from the media have accused Israel, they've accused Israel of blocking humanitarian aid through the checkpoints. However, it's now come to light that the real issue lies elsewhere. Despite Israel's ongoing claims to have ample capacity at the border crossings to go through all the trucks to make sure all the aid, it was only aid, and they from day one they've said we've got plenty of capacity, send more trucks. But the liberal media has said no, they're blocking the aid. Well, the United Nations on the 22nd acknowledged that they simply don't have enough supplies to send. The revelation clarifies the situation and shifts the focus to the UN supply shortage rather than Israel's border policies. So Israel, in their briefing, and it was that gentleman that we were talking about earlier, that younger gentleman that was doing the news briefings, he said, listen, we let in 300 trucks, X amount of tons of food. We have plenty of capacity to give more. You guys aren't sending it. Mm-hmm. So the UN finally admitted that they don't have the available resources to send.
Well, let's back up a little bit in time. We left Gaza in 2005, we being Israel. I was in the military at the time, and I had this kind of behind the curtains kind of position with that whole thing, a role. Not that I was driving, whatever, not interesting. What is interesting is that since we left, we literally, we gave them the keys and went, here you go, not our problem anymore. Well, the next day rockets start flying, right? Almost literally the next day. But ever since then, because Gaza is a kind of geographically secluded, and it's really only geographically secluded because because it does border with Egypt in the southern strip, and Egypt doesn't want to have anything to do with Gaza, never has, and probably never will. That's why,
which is another conversation to be had.
100%. That's why the president of Egypt, Sisi, and the king of Jordan have both said right at the beginning of the war, not one Palestinian will come in here, not one. And they're trying to blame it on Israel when really they don't want these people coming in there, because also a different conversation. But the times in the past that the Palestinians have gone and kind of settled in Jordan, for example, there's a civil war in Jordan in the 70s against them specifically. Same thing in Yemen, all that kind of stuff. So, but since we left Gaza and there's not one single Jew living in the Gaza Strip anymore, Israel has been providing almost all of their electricity, almost all of their drinking water, almost all of their food, almost all of their building supplies, which are used for terror tunnels and building rockets and weapons, almost all of their medicine. Israel's been providing that every single day from 2005 until October 7th. And then with a brief stop after October 7th, we've been sending all that shit back in, just in a much vaster quantities in the war. We are providing all of this stuff to our enemies. And I want to make something very clear to people, if it wasn't clear enough already. And I think it's not. People say, well, we're fighting Hamas, we're not fighting the Palestinian people. Well, that's true. However, Hamas is the Palestinian people, and that's the problem, right? Hamas represents the majority opinion of the Palestinian people, especially in the Gaza Strip. Even CNN and all these journalists have been quoting all these things saying, oh, well, all these polls recently, blah, 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 72% of, ironic number, by the way, 72% of the people in the Gaza Strip actually support Hamas. This is now during the war and October 7th. 72%. When have you seen a country or a city or a group of people, a large group of people, where you have a 72% consensus on anything, right? My opinion is that's probably maybe even a low number, because when you do a census or whatever, you're not getting everybody's opinion.
Right.
Now, it is true that the people there can't really speak their opinion because Hamas will kill them, right? A lot of this humanitarian aid, and the reason it shouldn't have gone there to begin with, or one of the two reasons it shouldn't have gone there to begin with, is because Hamas is actually stealing, and still is stealing, the majority of the humanitarian aid that comes into there. And they are literally killing their own people physically. They themselves are killing a lot of their own people to get that stuff. I'm not even talking about their actual tactic, which really is more of a strategy of getting their own population killed, because look, it works, right? They get their own population killed, and look what the world's doing. They think we're committing genocide, which couldn't possibly be further from the truth, right? It's complete insanity. But but that is what a huge swath of the planet actually believes is going on. So that's just the other reason that I think it's criminal, literally criminal, for the world to force all this humanitarian aid in, is because what it does is it confirms to Hamas that they are A, correct, B, on the winning side of this, because hey, you did these horrible things, and so here's all the stuff you need, and here's some weapons shipments that are hidden in that. And also, by the way, you committed a genocide and murdered and raped and burned and all these horrible things. So why don't we force a country on you, which they don't even want, right?
Right, exactly.
The whole two-state solution, they don't even want it. If they did, they would have it by now. They've had 6 different opportunities to start a actual Palestinian country, and they, or state, and they declined. Not Israel. They declined. Israel's the one who offered.
Well, and not only that, but I seen many documentaries where reporters would go into Gaza, go into Palestine, and say, "Do you believe in a 2-state solution?" And you know what? 100% of them said, "No," because Israel shouldn't exist.
Exactly.
So what I always say is, if the Palestinians laid down their arms right now, there'd be peace. If the Jewish people would lay their arms down right now, there would be no Israel.
Correct.
That's a fact. That is a fact.
Unequivocally.
And that's what 100%, according to the documentaries I've seen, 100% of the civilians in Palestine believe. So,
well, look, the term civilians in reference to the Palestinians, especially in Gaza right now, is kind of a weird topic, right? Because Hamas is also civilian, right? It's a terror group. It is not a military force. It is not a governing body, even though it is de facto governing the Gaza Strip, because 2005 we pulled out. 2006 they had elections, and Hamas was chosen in the elections. I couldn't tell you if those elections were real or not. I have no idea. But either way, if they're not real, Hamas usurped power. And if they were real and accurate, then all the people chose them. So either way, and then what happened? Because up until that point, the control of governmental control of the Gaza Strip was held by the Palestinian Authority, which is the quote unquote government of the West Bank as well. And then what happened is, after those, elections, the Hamas thugs went and murdered literally every single Palestinian Authority person in the Gaza Strip. They murdered all of them, right? So, the fact that anybody has any sort of doubt about what's going on there, to me, is just it's 1984, right? It's something out of some crazy book that you read in high school and you go, wow, man, be crazy if the world ever got that bad. But thank God we live in America where something like that could never happen.
Well, it's funny you say that because I opened up last week's podcast saying that we are living right now and seeing with our very eyes the movie Idiocracy. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, but we're living that right now, and it just baffles me that the rest of the world doesn't see exactly what's going on. Well, what I try to do every week, Emery, is I try to highlight and I try to put a face to some of the crimes that are being committed, not just on October 7th, but also right now. And another news briefing came out a little bit, I think it was this morning, actually. I think I scrambled to actually get it up here. But I'm not going to, we do have a video from a military spokesman from the IDF, but the long and short of it is the bodies of 3 Israeli civilians were found by IDF Special Forces. It's reported that the murdered Israelis were killed on October 7th and their dead bodies drug over the border into Gaza. So let's see what this spokesman has to say.
It is with a heavy heart that I share that last night Israeli Special Forces in Gaza rescued the bodies of our hostages Hanania Vlonka, Michel Nissenbaum, Orion Hernandez. Their bodies were rescued during a special operation based on precise intelligence in the area of Gaza.
So there you go. I mean, I like to put a face to the actual war crimes, not just the assumed war crimes, but let's put a face to the innocent victims that their dead bodies were drugged as a bargaining tool into the Gaza Strip. So there you go. Those are 3 of the newest faces.
If I may.
Absolutely.
First of all, they were found by my old unit that I served in. And the reason is there's a section of my old unit that is tasked specifically with locating, mapping, and destroying tunnels. And that's been active since, I want to say we started that section in 2004. This has been an ongoing thing, the tunnel thing. And so, especially in Gaza, but to a degree in Lebanon as well, different story. And that's, so they had the other day located a new tunnel pier, and they called in the unit, and they went in and started searching inside this tunnel, and that's where they found them. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's horrible. We found 3 more bodies last week.
Right, we reported on that.
Our thing is, we know that probably the majority of the hostages still in Gaza are probably dead. And this is one of the things that I have been yelling for years and years and years against Israel, against the way we do things in Israel governmentally. One of our problems, and unfortunately, I'm really torn. I'm really hurt that I was correct about this. I wish I was wrong. This is not an I told you so. Maybe it is to a degree, but for years I've been saying, look, Israel is going to lose the next war. And the reason we're going to lose the next war, and I know how this sounds, guys, but this is reality. We are going to lose the next war because we care too much about human life, both ours and the enemy's. We care too much about it, especially when we're facing an enemy who glorifies nothing but death. We, Western culture, not just Israel, Western culture, we love life, right? That's the whole idea is, we only have a short ride on this carnival ride, and and let's try to make it good for people. Let's try to make this a good place to live. Let's try to enjoy our time here. Let's try to love our family and our friends. And let's try to respect people with other opinions, et cetera, et cetera. Well, why is this a negative thing in terms of going to war? Israel always, since the beginning, has always strived in war to end it as soon as possible, right? As quickly as possible, with the fewest number of casualties possible, and while spending the lowest amount of money possible, so that your country doesn't go bankrupt, because
Right.
war is very, very expensive. And the biggest problem with that is that our adversaries, right? I'll say this, it's a bit of an overgeneralization, but just for simplicity's sake, I'll say the Muslim world is the exact opposite. They have what I call generational patience. And what that means is, hey, look, I lost the 48 war. I lost the, war of attrition. I lost the 67 war. I lost the 73 war, although that's debatable, 76. I lost the 93 war in Lebanon, et cetera, et cetera. That's okay, because those weren't wars. They were battles. And if I don't win, my kids will win. If my kids don't win, then their kids will wipe out the Jews from the planet. Right. So
Yeah.
That's generational patience. And so if our thing is we can't lose any soldiers or the fewest amount of casualties because I can't deal with that boy's mother that he died in combat, then you're already putting a stop on your ability to definitively win a war.
Exactly. Yep.
And we're not facing army, right?
Right, and that's exactly right, and especially now in this day and age of social media, and where everybody has a GoPro on and is able to live stream and stuff like that, and they what people don't understand, Hamas and most terrorist organizations have a hell of a propaganda arm. They can make videos better than me and you and Russ put together, and they could, we make fun of it. We call it the Hamas wood, or instead of Hollywood, we call it Hamas wood. And it's just you can tell exactly where the propaganda is coming from. But again, the liberal media here in the United States spews it out like crazy. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Let me just give an example to what you're saying, because I just had an hour. I just had a 3-hour drive home, and pretty much the whole time I had a phone call with my best friend from high school. I'm not going to use names out of respect, but he's pretty liberal. Fine, I got no problem with that. But unlike the majority of what we know now, he and I have conversations. We disagree about a lot of stuff, but we listen to each other and we get animated and all that. And I was trying to explain to him that not only is this not genocide, not only are the civilian casualty numbers, as devastating as it is to have civilian casualties, not only are they the lowest in military history of any urban conflict like this, but this has been not only the tactic or strategy of Hamas in this current conflict, and the strategy I'm talking about, of course, is forcefully getting their own people killed for the betterment of their PR, propaganda. But I gave him some examples from my personal experience in the military, and where I saw it unequivocally. I'll be happy to share one or two of those stories if you want, but I have seen with my own eyes, this is not a new tactic. They have been doing this for decades, and posting people with cameras and forcing a situation where a civilian gets killed so that they can blame it on us. And I'll like I said, I'll be happy to share a couple of examples, but it's tried and true.
Well, and it's not only Hamas doing it; it's the entire Arab League doing it.
Yes,
for the most part, it's Iran doing it. It's they're using the Palestinians as fodder.
Exactly.
And propaganda. So it's unfortunate. I get it. But hopefully, well, I won't say that. But anyway, hopefully it all comes to an end soon, and we get your friends and family safe, and my friends stay safe over there. But I don't want to keep up too much of your time. But I do have one other question for you. If you just do me this favor, I don't know if you know this or not, but we went through a little course in North Carolina. And it was called TroysGate. And now, look, I am not the guy. I'm not the instructor X guy or whatever the guy's name is, where I make all these fancy shooting videos and I could shoot, a dime at 100 yards with a Glock 17. But
Right.
the real cool thing is doing this TroysGate experience. They actually took video of me, so I've been able to critique it. I've been able to look and see where my deficiencies are. What did I do wrong? What did I do right? Maybe I did something right. I don't know. But before we go through that, Russ, if you would, run that TroysGate promo. There you go, guys. That is a TroysGate experience that I went through when I was at Mountain Readiness. And we're going to be doing that again right after the Fallout event. So I encourage all you guys to sign up for that. It's an experience you will not forget. Look, the price point for that is $500. If you can't do the 2-day class, put your deposit in, okay? Because maybe we can just get you in the TroysGate experience for the amount of the deposit. Now, I'd have to eat a few bucks, but that's how much I value that experience, all right? So get your deposit in for that experience. You're not going to want to miss it. If you can do 2 days, the first day being basic pistol with me, second day going right into the TroysGate experience, by all means, certainly do it. It'll be an experience you will never forget, but you will see that you make some mistakes. And it's not a pass-fail thing, like I said on Angry Americans podcast the other night. It's what did you see? Why did you react in that fashion? And me being the OCD, anal kind of guy that I am, I have dissected this video of one of the stressful scenarios, and I'd like to go through it with you, Emery, you being the professional, you being the IDF, the guy. Now, I don't know if all of you guys know this. My background is trained through ex-IDF people. I've never served. Most of my training is done going to classes, like classes with Tactical Riflemen or Israeli Tactical School or a number of different agencies. But I was a medic that took care of a lot of people, and we were stacked up on quite a few doors, so I'm trained in that aspect there. But have I ever shot a person? No, never have. So this is as realistic as you can get, and then you really get to see, Emery, how your body responds as a civilian to these kind of things. So let me see if I can prompt this up here real quick. I'm not sure if it's going to work, but I'm going to try, and then we'll go through it a minute. I'll tell you what I was thinking, Emery, what my thought process was, and you tell me what the hell I should have done. Let me try to get this going here. Let me minimize this. Let me push this. All right, let's slow this down. Let me back it up. I want to kill the sound on this.
So if I get a chance to really study it, I'm sure I'll come up with a lot more stuff. I see a bunch of stuff.
All right, well, hang tight. Let me get it so I can go frame by frame for you, so you can really rip me apart. That's what I really need in my life.
Look, when I teach combat skills for a living, right?
Right.
Whether it's shooting, knife fighting, tactics, tactical driving, all kinds of stuff like that. And and it's so valuable to be able to have this tool to study yourself. And the first time I was really made aware of this as a tool was actually before I even went in the military. I was playing football in high school, right? And our games were recorded. And my coach would always tell me, hey, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong. And in my mind, I'm going, coach doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
Yes.
My stance was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I left my stance lower than that guy, blah, blah, blah. And then you see it on your video and you go, oh my God, coach is right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, even in our training seminars, when we do SWAT guys and stuff like that, they're type A personalities. No, I didn't do that. I didn't do it. So I have to video them. And I say, look, knucklehead, you did do it. I'm not lying to you. I want you to progress. And an extra set of eyes is what helps you there.
Yeah, 100%. So there's two aspects there, right? One is neutralizing your ego when you're in a learning process.
Mm-hmm.
It's a must, right? And that's why I love teaching women more than I love teaching men, is because women don't come to the range with that male ego, and they're there to learn. And they're like, okay, hey, look, this isn't my thing. Let's see what this guy has to tell me, right? Where guys are always, I got something to prove.
Right.
So that's one. The other aspect of it is kinesthetic awareness. So some people are more and some people are less blessed with kinesthetic awareness as a innate trait in their DNA. And what kinesthetic awareness is, for those of you guys who may not know what that means, is in layman's terms, let's call it the awareness of your body in space, your body doing some sort of action in space, right? Mm-hmm. So if I were to tell you, hey, Pete, close your eyes, put your right hand in front of your body. Don't do it. I just want you to visualize doing this. Close your eyes, put your right hand in front of your body, bend your elbow 90 degrees. Now turn your elbow, so for your forearm is from sideways to vertical, et cetera, et cetera. Your ability to imagine that your body doing that in space and then going out and actually physically doing it correctly, that equates to kinesthetic awareness. Okay.
Gotcha.
And so oftentimes, especially when we're doing something that is not built into our subconscious because we have done it correctly so many thousands of times, then we're just simply not aware of what my body is or is not doing correctly based on this motion, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where a third person perspective is so critically important to being able to improve your skills, right? I never knew I looked like such a dumbass when I'm doing X. And then you see it, you can correct it, right?
It's true.
So that's what you have here. And I think this video tool is excellent. Of course, what's missing here, and it's missing for a good reason, is the other side of that video, right?
So and I actually have that video, but I don't want to show it because when we go through this experience, I want my students to actually live the same experience I did. This is an experience that, like I said on the Angry American podcast, you are either going to shit your pants or you are going to revert back to what you're training. So you're only going to revert back to your highest level of training, right? I mean, we know that. So, but do you actually realize if you actually are absorbing that training? And this video for me was, for one thing, was a validator for my training. It validated some of my training. Another thing is I wanted to see how my body reacted to these certain stressors. Guys, I know we got a lot of questions. We are going to get to them right after this, I promise. So let's go frame by frame. Emery, go ahead, buddy.
If I could ask you before we go frame by frame, if you could play it for me one time at normal speed, please.
Sure. Let me back it up here. Let me try. And here we go. Let me back it up a little bit for you so we can see the whole effect here. Yeah, that about does it
Awesome.
there.
So I've already got a few things to point out here, not necessarily negative, but I know you understand this, Pete, for the benefit of everybody listening. I want you guys to understand one thing about when critique things, right? So if we go to the range or whatever, and I'm getting better about starting things off with, dude, you did really good. Here's the things you did well, A, B, C, D. But in the military, we don't do that. In special operations units, we dwell on what didn't go correctly because that's what we need to fix. Everything else, awesome, guys, good.
Right.
But we don't need the pat on the back. And I will say the things that I think you did very well, which is really the majority of the things here you did very well. But I got 3 little things to point out.
Well, let's point them out as we go through. That way we can get it in slow motion.
So stop it right when your hand touches the gun. There you go. Okay. So right there. First things first. Both your hands are moving at the same time, but they didn't twitch together. Okay. What I mean by that, you see how your control hand, your left hand, is kind of moving down to that position to accept the other hand with a pistol in it. Right? That's good. That's good. But they didn't twitch. Your left hand was a little bit late. Why is this important? Because the gun isn't even out of the holster yet, right? Why is this important? The reason it's important is because your gun hand will move faster if both your hands twitch at the same time. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So there's one piece. So that's one piece that I would say, hey, let's start working on both at the same time.
Gotcha.
Same time,
okay.
right?
So from my aspect and looking at it from the actual scenario is we're trying to de-escalate, right? We're trying to de-escalate.
Yep.
Something had caught my eye in a specific spot. I won't give away any details, and this is where I make the decision that I need to pull my firearm.
Yep.
So left hand, you're right, does drop.
Touch, touch, touch. One more frame. Now, notice right there, what you did was what I call going for the perfect grip. I don't teach to go for the perfect grip. And if you see that gun coming out of the holster, go a few frames forward and watch it come out of the holster. You will notice that your right hand, your shooting hand, is sitting low on that gun, slightly. Now, you correct it on the way out. I caught that before, right? Right there, you're starting to correct it. Okay. Hold on a second, because we'll get to when that light turns on is the next point. But so what happened there, and this is what happens to pretty much everybody, right? What happened there is you tried to go for the perfect grip subconsciously. This is not something you were thinking about. Your brain was on, oh my God, this guy's pulling a gun on me or whatever it was. Yeah. I haven't seen the other side of this, right?
Yeah. So if you guys notice, you'll see that, okay, so I caught motion. Okay, so now a stressor happens, and it's a loud explosion. I won't give away the details, but it is a stressor. And watch how my body now, at this point, now I haven't grabbed my firearm yet, but watch how my body reacts to that stressor, right?
Yep.
Eyes closed. Holy crap, I kind of coil up, right?
And not only is there nothing wrong with that, that's what we teach, right?
Another stressor. And now it's hard to see because you have this explosion in your face. And you could see the lag between the actual strobe and my eyes closing, right? I mean, you're talking about 10 hundredths of a second.
I think there's something wrong with that, Pete, but there's not. Your eyes close, protect your eyeballs.
Absolutely, yeah. And to protect, yeah. But it wasn't too concerning to me because, you know, we talked about, and I know we use different verbiage here, but that natural aiming point, that point shooting technique that we talk about sometimes in my classes, I had already established where I was going to shoot at this point.
Yep.
So I didn't care if I saw it or didn't see it. I knew where I was going to shoot because I had that natural aiming point. So that was my thought process.
Or am I over geeking this?
No, geek it.
Okay. So let me get back to that low grip just to finish that point a second before we get to this. Because I do have some stuff about body positioning here to add. Guys, I want to make this caveat that nothing in combat goes like training. Nothing, right? So all we can do is see what goes right, see what goes wrong, and still just try to improve. I want to just go back to the grip because I said what went wrong, but I want to tell people what to do to fix it. And what you do to fix that draw is you train yourself to not reach that gun with the perfect grip. You train yourself to reach that gun with your shooting hand a little bit low on the grip. You want to build in a miss, and you're missing low, and you're scooting that hand, you're grinding that hand here up the gun. And that means that even if your belt moved a little bit, or if you're in a weird messed up position, then you always build in that miss and you build it into a perfect grip, even when you do miss, right? So if I miss into the perfect grip. If I miss low, I'm still on the ting of that gun and the action doesn't change, and I scoot that hand, I scoot the palm of my hand up that gun until I feel pressure on my first dorsal web space, which is right here, right? The web of between your thumb and your trigger finger. And that will fix 90% of a bad draw.
Nice. That's something. See, I always, but yeah, and then if you just happen to hit it right, you hit it right. You don't have to worry about it.
Exactly.
I like it.
So you're building in a miss. It costs you like 1/10 of a second or whatever. I always say, I don't care if you have a sub 1 second draw or whatever. I care that you can, there's so many that have to happen before the draw to make sure that you earn your draw, right? You have to get either space or time, which are equivalent in this kind of situation, right? So you have to create that space or create that time gap to be able to go for your weapon of choice. So that's that. When your hands come together, you do not flag your hand. So that's already great, right? Your hands come together, you build a grip. Your control hand is a little bit low. That's okay. We can work on that. But what I do want to point out, you see that point where the flashlight turns on, right? That point right there is already part of your aiming process. So 4 rules of firearm safety. We all know them. We've all heard them ad nauseum. They are combat rules. Okay. The reason I'm bringing that up, they're not just a rangeism, right? Assume all guns are loaded. 2, never point your gun at anything you're not willing to destroy. Cool. We know that. 3, keep your finger off the trigger until, break. This is where I add a piece. Never put your finger on the trigger until you have an aiming process and are ready to shoot. Aiming process is the key thing I wanted to bring in here, because what we always teach is you don't aim with your sights. Okay. Now, we always use our sights. I use my sights on every single shot, right? So this is not point shooting what I'm talking about. This is the correct aiming process. Your draw, right? We aim with our body, but we confirm our aim with our sights. If your sequence of your draw is done well, the draw itself is how you aim the gun. You aim the gun by first orienting your body, OODA loop, right? You orient your body correctly. Skeletal alignment is what we call it in geek terms. And then when you draw, you build the perfect grip. And then there's what we call sight alignment by feel, which is exactly what you're doing there, which means that from the second your hands touch on that gun, both your hands come together on that gun should be pointing at your bad guy. And anywhere along that continuum from the compressed low ready, where you see him now, all the way to full extension, you should be able to put rounds effectively on your target. And that's exactly what you did. Right. So that's commendable.
Yeah, that was it. And of course, I've never put myself in that situation. So to actually see it on video, and like I was telling Chris Weatherman, Angry American, in this particular scenario, and why I find it so interesting is because I don't remember reaching down and unholstering that firearm. I don't. It was surreal to me. The one thing I just remember that, and really I don't understand until I'm about 3 or 4 shots in, that exactly what I was doing. So it was interesting. It was certainly a real stressor. So
yeah, for sure. Look, training is good. Correct training is good. right? But training under conditions of adrenal activation is a crucial part that that people don't incorporate, or don't incorporate at least correctly in their training. And most instructors don't know how to induce that kind of stress, right? I've trained, I don't know how many billions, seemingly billions of law enforcement officers that say, oh yeah, we do, our department does great training, we qualify this many times a year, we do this, we do stress shooting. Really, what stress shooting do you do? Well, we run a quarter mile, do jumping jacks, and then we shoot. That is not stress shooting. That is elevated heart rate, right? That's a different thing. It may be physical stress, but it's not mental stress.
Right.
And what TroysGate gives you is a little bit of a touch of that mental stress, because it seems very realistic, even though you're not going to die, right?
Right.
There's not real bullets flying at you, but it's inducing adrenal activation. And so one of the, we've all heard the key phrase of the physiological effects, right? And everybody knows about tunnel vision and auditory exclusion and loss of fine motor skills and all that. And those are all correct. But I like to geek out, and I get in much deeper into these topics with my students. And so what the effect that you were describing there with, I don't remember reaching for my gun. First of all, I said good, and that's good because that means that your draw is subconscious. There's always things to tweak on everything, right? Like if you see me shoot, it's not like I'm some gift to the world of shooting, right? I'm decent, right? I understand it, and I can make people better shooters than I am. And that I'm pretty proud of, right? They're two different skills, shooting and I'm a decent shooter. It's not like I'm a piece of shit and I'm trying to pretend. But so the physiological effect you were describing there is called tachypsychia. It is the altered perception of time. And tachypsychia, there are two sides to that coin, right? So I use this example in my classes. You are driving to work in the morning, okay? And it's a cold winter day, and you hit a patch of black ice on the road, and your car goes into a wild spin, and then it stops, and you're safe, and everything's good. Okay. Cop pulls up and says, "Oh, sir, I saw that whole thing. Are you okay? I saw that you slipped on the ice." And there are two types of reactions he might get. One is, "Oh my God, it happened so fast. It was a blur. It started happening. I felt myself scooting, across that road, and I don't know what happened. Then I stopped, and here you are talking to me." Right? That's
Right.
tachypsychia, altered perception of time. The more you train a particular skill mechanically, and then once you add the stress, the actual mental and emotional stress to those mechanical trainings, you can morph tachypsychia into the other reaction that proverbial driver would give that cop after, which is, man, everything just kind of went matrix on me and went slow motion. And I felt myself trying to counter steer, and I felt my foot pumping the brake, and it didn't work. And then I moved my foot to the gas, et cetera, et cetera. And it felt like it took 30 seconds, but really it was 3.
Right.
Both of those are tachypsychia. And the way you can intentionally turn that blur into the slow motion by not only perfecting a mechanical skill, but by incorporating mental emotional stress into your training.
Gotcha. And this is certainly a way to do it. Before the internet spec ops ripped me apart, Emery, for this frame right here. Can you explain this?
My favorite frame.
Can you explain this before the internet spec ops ripped me apart?
I would love to, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to. So I know, Pete, that you have been trained by Israelis on shooting. And this is one of the surviving Israeli mechanics of shooting that I believe is crucially overlooked in our American shooting society. What Pete is doing right here is he is checking the ejection port of his weapon after he is done shooting. This isn't done if you're transitioning from one target to the next that you have to shoot real quick or whatever. This is before you move to your next place of cover and concealment, or before you move to that next room of the building that you're clearing or whatever. you will conduct two things. One, very first is a check of your ejection port. All Pete's doing is throwing a look that takes about a quarter second and making sure that his gun is in battery and good to go. The second thing he would have done if he were moving into the next room here is do a tac mag reload, right? Making sure your gun is in the best condition it can be. That quick motion, that flick of the wrist or bend of at the elbows would be more correct, which is what you did, is just looking over top. If you were shooting a rifle, you would cant that rifle a little bit towards the left so you could look into the ejection port of that AR.
Which is interesting because we do that in America with a rifle. We have no problem doing that with a rifle for the most part. A lot of people do that. However, with a pistol, they don't seem to follow that same procedure. But I want to do the same procedure with a pistol as with a rifle, as far as stuff like that, and even as far as the slide release when I do a reload, magazine change. So anyway, that's that. So there you go. An IDF guy told you what it is. Don't butcher me, Instructor X, when you watch this video. I don't want to hear anything about it.
If anybody's got anything negative to say about that, they can suck a bag of dicks, because you know what? You're making sure that your gun's in the fight.
Right,
Period, end of story.
exactly,
And
exactly.
has nothing to do with Israeli or or guacamole or whatever. You're checking your gun.
Exactly. And like I said, we've been trained to do that with rifles and carbines for a long time now, and I don't understand why we don't do it with a pistol. I'm still going to do it. So like Emery said, suck a bag of dicks. So there you go. So
I do it.
Yeah, I know it's
there
not
are two ways to do it, right? One is you can tip that pistol up so just enough so that you can get a look into the ejection port and make sure that you don't see an ejection port. That means your gun's in battery. The other is if you are putting your gun away, the action of bringing that gun back into your body on the way to the holster, all you have to do is divert your look downward just for an instant, and it achieves the same thing.
Exactly. And I will add, for all you now, I am not, like I said, I know Will corrected me. It's Instructor 0, not Instructor X, but I like Instructor 0.
You know what? Instructor 0 were here on the podcast with us. We could have this conversation, and I can pretty much guarantee that he'd be like, okay, it makes sense.
Exactly. But I will say, for a guy who doesn't train in quick draw McGraw stuff, we did squeeze off a round in 0.97 seconds. So as Emery would say, suck a bag of dicks. So there you go.
Look, I want to make one point clear again, which is my job here is to dissect everything in order to improve us, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm sticking to the negative stuff. I have probably 15 different comments that are very, very positive about what happened there. Overall, I would say in terms of the draw and the shot and the follow through that people don't do, which you did, all of those things were extremely well executed.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Not bad for a knucklehead Italian guy. That's what I say. So Emery, I sure do appreciate you being here tonight, brother. I love you. I wish the best for you and your family and your friends over in Israel. I've taken a liking to you. There was a few guys we met at Mountain Readiness, and not you in particular, but I went up to another guy who was a special forces operator, and I go, look, I don't know what it is about you. I can't figure it out, but I think I like you. That says a lot, because normally I would just tell you what you said, eat a bag of dicks. But Emery, right off the bat, I knew that I was going to enjoy being around you. I think we have the same mindset. I think we have the same overall views of the world, and I sure do appreciate you spending your time on a Friday night with us, brother.
Pete, first of all, I don't have a life, so it's all good. But I super appreciate you asking me to be here. It's been a pleasure. Really, really a fun, awesome podcast. Thank you for listening to my rants, and me too, brother. I think you're awesome.
Appreciate it.
I love what you do, love you, and I hope you keep doing it at that level. And just like I said on the Angry American podcast to you the other night, I would be honored to be able to come to one of your classes as a student.
Absolutely.
And I'm a good student. I'll shut up.
Well, when you get back from your vacation, you give me a call, brother.
Roger that.
All
I
right.
appreciate
We're going
it,
to take a quick intermission, guys. And, well, actually, no, let's stop that. Don't go nowhere, Emery, because I want, if anybody has any questions for Emery, let's pop that out right now. Russ, if you saw anything that you happened to flag, can you pop that up? And that way we can get as much out of Emery as we can before he decides to head off on vacation.
I'm working on it. Give me a second. There were
Okay.
several up
Yeah, I'm
top. I'm going to try to
I'm
find
sorry,
them.
I haven't seen any of the comments.
Yeah,
yet.
we haven't really. Normally, we'll take a break and read a few of them. I'm sorry, guys. I haven't recognized you being here. Those of you that are viewing, but when I get an opportunity to talk to a guy like Emery, I wanna be focused. So we're so absolutely, guys. If you have the opportunity to at least put a deposit down on the TroysGate experience with that first day of training with me up at the TroysGate facility, by the way. Definitely lock in your spot. I think we're 20% sold out already, so let's go and get it. Let's get it sold out. And look, if we go over those 12 students, I'll line up assistant instructors and we'll run it. I am not going to deny anybody an opportunity at this training. I promise you that.
Absolutely.
TroysGate is
I couldn't find. So Pete, I couldn't find any questions. A couple of comments. Guys, if you have any questions directly for Emery, just tag it at Emery or hashtag Emery, and we'll bring them up on the screen real quick.
Absolutely. And we're going to have Emery back again, guys, in a few weeks or whenever he gets back from vacation. And we are... Oh, hi, Cheese Doodle. I see you there. That's my daughter. I would certainly recognize her. I'm sorry, baby girl. You are here. Thank you. You are recognized. All right, let's go to intermission. Emery, thank you very much, brother. I love you. And stay safe, man. Stay safe,
Love you
most
too, brother.
importantly.
And everybody watching, I appreciate you guys, and keep America America.
Absolutely.